poet laureate herself. So I'm sad Perry's not here because she was one of my guides in this journey. And I just want to say something. Peggy Heller, a lot of gratitude, right? Most of you know her and we love her as the extraordinary teacher and mentor who illuminates the history and practice of bibliotherapy. Gratitude for her ability to bring her light, her delightful, depthful, breathful healing to so many, including those in this room today. And gratitude to all of those who have forged the paths that have brought us bibliopoetry therapy, or as our beloved Ken called it, words, art, and community service. Don't you love that? Word, arts, and community service. This most elegant form of connecting, creating, clarifying, cleaving, and inspiring process. So, breathe in gratitude for all these people. Allow that into your body. Allow yourself to breathe it in, to feel it, to know where it lives in you in this moment. And welcome. Welcome to this tribe of word artists, healers, and activists. As Shel Silverstein reminds us, for those of us who use this, if you are a dreamer, come in. If you are a dreamer, a wisher, a liar, a hoper, a prayer, a magic bean buyer, come in, come in. And so all of you are welcome, because that's what we do. Poetry therapists welcome everyone. When I was the poet laureate of Alexandria, which I just gave to Kaniki Jakarta, who was our first Black poet laureate of Alexandria, I began my tenure with a poem entitled The Welcoming Sky. Here's part of it. All are welcome. The sky does not exclude. The sky embraces us all. The sky reminds us that we are small, that we are connected, that we are part of something so immense we can barely glimpse it. And yet it lives in us, reminds us that we are all light, that we have a place here in this cosmic dance. All are welcome. We begin with welcome, and then we share who we are. As in Basho's, I am one. As in George Ella Lyons, where I'm from, yes. And here's a bit of my response. I'm a writer, a healer, a seeker, sometimes serious, sometimes silly, almost always curious. I come from Kentucky bluegrass and slower, lower Delaware. I come from a family of corn stalks in a soybean field. I come from a mother who read me A.A. Milne and Edgar Allan Poe since forever, and a father who sang Irish ballads, Irish pub songs, and beautiful ballads. Poetry is part of my blood, my bloodline, and my lifeline. It is a lifeline for me. As a clinical social worker and community activist and lifelong learner, I've studied many of the creative arts, dance, art therapy, psychodrama, and before I knew that there was something called poetry therapy, I used it in all the other creative arts that I studied. And many times people would say to me, do you know Peggy Heller? She kind of does what you do, only differently. So the pull to Peggy was inevitable, and Peggy brought me home to poetry therapy. Another home is in Alexandria, Virginia, where I've lived for 37 years. 5 years ago, I joined 2 other poets, and we took a trolley ride in our town. Alexandria, Virginia is right outside of Washington, D.C., and this particular trolley is free. And it runs from the metro station in Alexandria directly to the Potomac River, where our city sits. Because it is free and in an area that tourists and locals alike use, many different people ride this trolley. On this particular day in April, with gorgeous azure sky and spring daffodils and tulips blooming. The trolley was filled. Miles and Mercedes, the other poets, and I introduced ourselves and began reciting poetry. People looked confused, as this doesn't happen, and yet most listened. At one point, because I'm a poetry therapist, I simply said, "Does anyone want to share poetry?" And this woman immediately began reciting Wordsworth in this Irish brogue. And then this older black man who was in ragged clothes followed her with lines from Shakespeare that he recited by heart. 2 women found poets, other people found poems, and other people, and shared them, and no one wanted to get off the trolley. But that doesn't work like that, so the driver threatened us, and we got off the trolley. And we did, and we stayed, and we talked some more. And the Irish woman, who was in tears, said this was her very first trip to the United States. She had come to see and witness the memorial for the Lockerbie air crash victims, as she was from Lockerbie, and had never expected America to be so warm and friendly and filled with poetry. She was surprised. Suffice it to say that this trolley ride led me to be named the Poet Laureate of Alexandria 3 years later. And in part due to the trolley ride, filled with such an array of differences, I began my tenure with the theme of building bridges and creating community. Little did I know how important that would be when 6 months later a new and unexpected president was elected, and we so needed community and connection more than ever. So I turned to poets, of course, as we all do, to speak to me about bridges. Octavio Paz's poem, The Bridge. Between now and now, between I am and you are, the word bridge. In Wendell Berry's poem, The Book of Camp Branch, how much delight I've known in navigating down the flow by stepping stones, by sounding stones, by words that are stepping and sound stones. The words stand stone still until the flow moves them, changing the sound, a new word, a new place to step or stand. I have a history of bridges, walking them and building them. Seeing need and creating connection is an imperative. I've worked for a long time fighting for sensible gun laws before we had so many gun losses, and then even more. And I worked with victims of gun violence. Then, in 2017, gun violence struck Alexandria, a few blocks from my home, at the baseball field, where 2 congressmen were shot, as well as 2 others. Perhaps you read about them. We came together at a local cafe and read poetry to heal each other. I asked people to walk the neighborhood and write with chalk on our sidewalk, "Love lives here," to remind each other that indeed love lives here and we are here for each other. Someone created buttons with "Love lives here," and we shared them, knowing that love triumphs over guns. The power of words to heal is not to be underestimated. For years, I've worked with medical students, thanks to Ken Gorelick, to teach them, imagine this, to have relationships with their patients. Of course, I use poetry to help them see things from different perspectives and to deepen their own sense of themselves as healers and doctors. I've worked with physicians, nurses, and counselors in many different areas, those who work in palliative care and end-of-life care, guiding them to tend themselves as well as their patience with poetry. My work with therapists and other healers has been such a gift and honor. I've done workshops and groups with therapists and healers to help them to examine their greatest tool. And you know this because you are healers, which is use of self, right? Use of self in the work. We hone this tool by knowing ourselves, by expanding our awareness using words and poetry. We take care of this tool by taking care of each other and ourselves. One group that I facilitate for therapists has been ongoing on a weekly basis for 23 years. They have found safe harbor. We have created important and vulnerable connections, and poetry has been integral in the development of this group. Another group I do for doctors and acupuncturists and other healers is called Awakenings. We use meditation, journaling, and poetry to pause, listen, reflect, write, and connect. There are countless ways for us to use words for good as poetry therapists and facilitators. Words can be the building blocks for the bridges. When you cross the bridge from your thinking to your visceral body, a new world opens to you. The bridge from your thinking to the transcendent or divine, we often use mantras, for instance, as words that enable us to travel bridges to deeper states of consciousness. The Sanskrit word mantra actually means a sacred message, charm, or spell. Then there are words like Shema, which is a Jewish prayer word saying hear or listen, that calls us to attention and awareness. Repeating mantras, words, logos, they quiet our beehive minds and allow us to find an inner harbor, peaceful. When you use words to communicate to others and to listen, you're creating bridges with each other. As Hazrat Inayat Khan, the Sufi teacher, said, one word can be more precious than all the treasures on earth. Words are the precious paint of poets, and poets approach a poem with an observation, a story, an awareness. We construct the poem with words, and these words create a bridge. The bridge from myself to myself, and then from me to you. The sharing of these words become the bridge between us. How we place the words, how we place the spaces between the words. Sigmund Freud said, words have magical power. Words can bring clarity. They can also create mystery. As a poetry therapist, I will often hear a simple word that a person will be saying repetitively without awareness. When I point it out to them, there is a moment where a person will pause to ponder this, which causes them to listen with more attention to themselves. I am their mirror, and in it, they see the self that they are revealing. Often I will ask them to write about that word, find associations, create acrostics, mind mapping, simply play with the word. And that word creates a bridge into themselves, a bridge of self-awareness. Last autumn, when I was asked to do this talk, I wrote and researched for about 2 months, and then I put down the words and let them marinate, and I was going to pick them up in January, and I couldn't find them in January. So I had to begin with where I was. I have lost my words. So, as poetry therapists, we know we start from where we are. We just begin there. So I began writing. Start from where I have no words. And it reminded me of a group that I had been doing in a homeless shelter, and one of the women in my groups came in angry, and she said, I have lost my words. And she was stamping her feet, and we were sitting around a table, and she's pounding the table. And I said, why don't you just begin by writing, I've lost my words. I've lost my words, and just write them. And she did. And of course, other words began to show up.
And she was happy because she had a poem that shared her anger and frustration. The next week she came and she said, "Oh, I have found my words." And she performed a poem for the group as a spoken word performance. It was awesome. When I think of this sentence, "I have no words," I'm reminded of the people that I work with, and you probably work with every day. Certainly the children who have been hurt, abused, stolen, no words. Certainly the women who have been raped and beaten, the men who have been victimized, the African Americans who were brought here against their will and not even allowed to learn to read or write, no voice, the elderly who often literally cannot find their words, immigrants who are forced to live in their homes and countries and are met at our doorstep in the United States with walls and words that tell them you are unwelcome. The mentally ill who are judged rather than listened to. The homeless who struggle to find a safe place, who walk invisible and silent, and we don't see or hear them. So poetry therapists help these people to find their words. We find the ways, our ways into these places, every place, where those who do not have or have not had voices, and we share words of poetry. We listen to them, and we help them to listen to each other. We listen to the words they find, and we ask more about those words and what those words mean to them. Words like teeth. In my work, for example, with women who have been incarcerated for nonviolent crimes, who come from poverty and addiction and abuse, these women often do not have teeth. So the word teeth, the meaning of teeth, the stories of teeth are weighted with untold tales. Stories of teeth being punched out by the people who love them. Stories of teeth rotting before they ever had a chance because they were given Mountain Dew in their bottles instead of milk because Mountain Dew is cheap. Stories of not having food, of not having medical or dental care. Suddenly teeth take center stage. And for women who do not have front teeth, it is challenging to speak their words, and for others to understand them. They are ashamed and embarrassed, and they often speak with their hands over their mouths. But they must see their words and use their words in order to tell their truths and find their power again. And then we think about last fall with Dr. Christine Blasey Ford, yes? Most of us were stunned at first by the way Dr. Ford was treated when she courageously testified at the hearings. Her clarity, her authenticity, they stilled us. And then it hit us like a boulder, seeing white men, mostly older, stare at her without really hearing, without seemingly wanting to see the truth, trying to trap her. Our anger ignited us. In my anger and frustration, I reached out to my community of therapists and asked them for words. I needed words. So I thank all of them for sharing these words. Some are from their clients, and some are from their own selves. And I created a poem from the words, and I'll read part of it to you. The I in this poem is all of us. And the you is Dr. Ford. Thank you, Dr. Ford. I would prefer to remain anonymous. You too, it seems. Yet we are called on to be brave in times like these. Your story, which is my story, which is our story, reminds us of how far we have come and how much more we must fight to overcome. I always felt I had done something wrong, very wrong, but in truth it was he who did something very wrong. I felt like damaged goods. It has affected everything. We hear your truth through your voice, your face, your eyes, your words, your being, your story, your dignity, your presence, your quavering voice echoing in a cave of indifference. Thank you for your courage. Thank you for your bravery. Thank you for opening doors for scores and scores of us. Thank you for your truth, which is our truth. Thank you for bringing light to us all, even those who choose not to see. Words fail me, but not you. You have the words. We hear you. Your words matter. Our words matter. The outpouring of words that people shared was tremendous. And in this community poem, we found that our voices resonated with each other, and we created community. Rudyard Kipling, if you recall him, spoke to the Royal College of Surgeons in 1923. He said, "Words are, of course, the most powerful drug used by mankind. Not only do words infect, egotize, narcotize, and paralyze, but they enter into and color the minutest cells of the brain." This was in 1923. He's clearly using the metaphor of words as being as powerful as drugs, and even more so. Kipling was reminding them, and now us, that words have influence, can change a person, can impact a person's feelings and thoughts. It is also surmised that he was delivering a warning about using words to harm, as the Nazi Party was rising to power during that time. "I know nothing in the world that has as much power as a word," says Emily Dickinson. Poetry therapists create safe harbors all over the world. We create harbors for people to rest, to share, to find their words about the seas that they have traveled. And in these safe harbors, we help people to we help them to put their words together in ways that tell their stories. When they can tell their stories and be heard and affirmed and validated, they can listen then to other stories and be the ones to hear and affirm and validate. Then more magic happens, because they also learn that they are authors. They're the authors of their own story. They get to choose the words to highlight what they want to highlight, to create the arc of their stories, and in learning that they're authors, begin to understand that they can use words to create their stories and the stories that they are living into. The possibilities are vast, and the world opens up. Poetry therapists help others locate the authors in them, and in doing so, we provide a perspective of seeing that they have authority. To be an author, an authority of yourself, is to be empowered, and words empower us. Think of the words that you all carry with you as talismans, as friends, as things that hold us to when we need to be held. "I am nobody. Who are you?" says Emily Dickinson. You do not have to be good. You do not have to walk on your knees for 100 miles through the desert repenting. Mary Oliver. "When despair for the world grows in me, I go and lie down where the wood drake rests in his beauty on the water, and the great heron feeds." Lyndall Berry. These are the words we play with, work with, touch, sleep with, walk with every day, and we are generous in sharing because we know they may speak to someone. They might warm them, allow them to feel connected, to feel less alone, to be aware that we share pain and joy and life. We use words to build bridges. Here's some, I wrote a lot of bridge poems. Here's a bit of one called Bridges of Breath. Build bridges with your breath. Inhale love for yourself in this moment. Exhale love for others. Build bridges inside you. Invite the parts that you have exiled, whom you have cut off, whom you fear, who do not fit, to sit with you, to tell their stories. Listen until you hear. Words are the girders of bridges we build in order to know ourselves, to know from where we have come and how that has formed us and shaped us, and the way that we form the words can change the color of that story. It can give us strength to build bridges to others and the new stories we want to create in our life. Poetry therapists and word artists are so needed right now in the world. Right now, the world needs us. Start from where you are, wherever you are. Welcome people. Go find them everywhere. Find words, listen, build bridges with words. Gregory Orr says, let's remake the world with words, not frivolously, nor to hide from what we fear, but with a purpose. Let's, as Wordsworth said, remove the dust of custom so things shine again. Each object arrayed in its robe of an original light, and then we'll see the world as if for the first time, as once we gazed at the beloved who is gazing at us. For all of us, we must rise to the challenge. We must remake the world with words, especially now, and help others find their words. So let us go forth with our words in hand and build the bridges that are needed.